Welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Nicholas Spohn. Today is going to be the most important podcast episode I've ever done. It's the culmination of a bunch of other ideas. Today's topic is the unseen power of anchors. Now, that might not sound sexy, but wait till we get into it. My goal for this is to be my best podcast episode ever, for this to be mind-blowing and to change the way you think about your emotions and about your capabilities and performance. So the most powerful emotional force that nobody talks about is anchors. And we're going to get into what they are. We're going to get into why we have anchors, why we've evolved to have anchors, the purpose of them, how they get established, how we can take control and establish them ourselves. Basically, my analogy is that anchors are like favorite stations in your vehicle. You get in, you press 1 for country, 2 for rock and roll, 3 for classical. And so we're going to talk about how that works with our emotions, how we can use that to navigate, and how they unintentionally shape our lives and how we can make that more intentional. So I'm super pumped for today's episode. I'm going to share the secrets of all the different ego states and what I call avatars, or basically favorite emotional stations, how I use anchors to access them and strengthen them. If you stick around to the end, I'm going to show you how to master Hebb's law, which is neurons that fire together, wire together to access emotional states on demand. And the number one modality that's the most powerful in our brain to access emotions and to anchor them. So this is going to be a super fun episode. I'm so excited for it. This is kind of the culmination, like I mentioned, of many ideas. So you guys should be familiar with my antenna theory of emotions, basically all of the factors that affect the emotions that we experience. Remember, that's our body language, which includes our breath, our posture, our facial expressions, the way we move our bodies. Breath, posture, I think I got them all. So the body language is part of it, and then the foods that we eat, the people that we spend time with, right? Those definitely affect our emotional states. What we focus on, what we think about, the sounds that we hear, or our self-talk, which kind of falls into the auditory category together, and then the pictures that we see, what we visualize internally or what we imagine in our heads. All of those affect the emotional station. Remember, our body's like an antenna. All of those things affect our cellular vibration. Just like an antenna vibrates into different stations on your radio, your body vibrates into different emotional stations. And those are the factors that affect the emotional station that you're on. But all of those are basically anchors, right? So we're going to talk about that in just a minute, but I want you to keep that idea in your mind that all of those are anchors to get you into certain emotional states. And we've been programmed through our lives and through evolution and our ancestors to access certain emotional states with certain anchors. So we're going to use those, the built-in programs that we have to totally change your emotional life starting today. So I hope you're excited for that. Let's see here. Okay. So, another thing, there's a podcast episode on congruence as well. So congruence is an important factor in setting these anchors up because we want to use multiple anchors at once that are all saying the same thing. Okay. So we're going to get into more about what that means, but so let's get started. First of all, if you enjoy my content, I would encourage you to share it with people. I'm getting rave reviews right now. People are sending me all kinds of messages and it means the world to me. I'm small enough now that I definitely respond to everybody, but I'm growing fast. So I love to hear from you guys. I love to hear how it's impacted your life or that you listen to it on the way to work. So anytime you can share this or leave me a comment or a review, I'm like so grateful. It definitely makes my day. So this episode, I hope, is one of those episodes that you guys are like, that was amazing. So all right, here we go. So what are anchors? So I tell this story to help it make sense. So imagine 2 cavemen are out hunting. These are our ancestors, or they could be women. I don't know, men or women. 2 cave people are out hunting. All right. And so it's dusk. They're in a field in a certain opening. There's a cave up ahead. And as they walk by this cave, a saber-toothed tiger jumps out, grabs one of the cavemen by the throat, smashes his esophagus, blood flies everywhere, and the one caveman hears his friend take his last dying breath. And that Saber-toothed tiger pulls the caveman into the cave to eat him, never to be seen from again. All right, a little gruesome picture. I kind of made that intentionally. But the one that survives now has what we call an extreme emotional event. And that creates a program within him to be afraid, to be fearful, because that's a survival mechanism, of everything that was going on at that time because they might be related. So anything that happens in a heightened emotional state, our brain links up. This is what an anchor is, or a trigger. You can call it a trigger. And I know we use that word pretty loosely these days. Everyone gets triggered for everything. But this is how it works. So that caveman, anytime he goes back into a field, anything that looks similar, remember, we're pattern matching organisms. So anytime we see a pattern that's at dusk, that's a field that's got an opening similar to this, that's got a cave, he's going to feel extreme fear because he saw his buddy die. And that fear is going to keep him out of a similar situation. So anytime, it's dusk, his brain may have linked up that saber-toothed tigers hunt at dusk. Right? And so anytime it's dusk, he might think, oh, I have to be home. This is where superstitions get developed as well. So he's going to be out at dusk. He's not even going to have to think about it. His brain is going to give him this fearful feeling anytime he matches a pattern that's similar to help him survive. So this is what an anchor is. He's anchored that emotion to that pattern. And so now, again, in order to stay alive, he is going to take the right actions to stay out of that situation. Because remember, our actions always stem from the emotional state that we're in. We cannot perform or act inconsistently with the emotional state we're in. So this fear pattern has set him up to feel the urge to run away from that situation or to get out of there. Now, we have this going on all the time, and a lot of us don't even know why. We're anchored to certain emotional states. We might feel fear because our subconscious mind has recognized a pattern that our conscious mind may not even be aware of. So the other thing that happens is that the caveman now reprograms his DNA with this fear. And that program gets passed down to his offspring to keep them alive. This is why birds can build nests without going to formal training for it. I need to turn a light on here. Because these patterns are passed down. So now his ancestors, anytime they saw a similar situation, would feel fear as well. So these anchors run our lives. And again, based on the antenna theory, what they're doing is they're going to like a preset station. So they trigger this situation, trigger this pattern matching recognition, which then triggers an emotional state. And that emotional state is what compels us to act. All right, so I hope this is making sense for you. So these emotional states spur all of our actions, and here's how it shows up in our life. So we anchor everything that's going on all the time. And there's two ways. Again, extreme emotional events, just like that caveman had watching his buddy die. That's pretty emotional. And the other one is repetition. Anything that happens over and over again. For efficiency purposes, our brain says to keep us alive, we must do this. But it doesn't have to tell you all of these things. It just changes the vibrational station that you're on, which then compels you to act in a certain way. Now, our brain's whole goal is to keep us alive. So most of us are linking up negative, what we consider negative, but they're just fearful emotional states to certain stimulus. So think about public speaking. Most of us are so strongly anchored to have a negative association to public speaking because throughout our lineage, any time that we got up in front of a group, if we embarrassed ourselves or if we were rejected by our tribe, if we didn't fit in, we would probably die. We would get kicked out of our tribe. People would say, that person's different. Remember, if you follow any of my content, you know that people that are different get judged. Not you. I know you guys don't judge, but most people judge people that are different. So we try to fit in. So we have a natural inclination or an anchor, an urge to fit in. So anytime we get up to public speak, we're telling our system we're different from everybody. There's a chance of us failing. We feel fear, and that we try to suppress it. And our body, every single cell in our body wants us to go sit down because of that survival impulse, because of that anchor. It's like taking us from a normal state of relaxation. We think about public speaking. Remember, we shift our focus. boom, instantly we get anxiety that's going to try to keep us playing small so that we survive. So that's what an anchor is. It's like if you're listening to a classical station where you feel good about it, and then all of a sudden you go to like grunge rock and you don't like it, that's what happens. It's like you push that button. You push that button by shifting your focus into public speaking, boom, that anchor fires. Or, think about the people in our lives. We have our parents. We have extreme emotional events and repetition around our parents. So when we think about our parents, we get a certain feeling. And that feeling may be to go to them for safety or for money. That feeling may be to totally avoid them. But if you guys listen to my episode on generalize, delete, and distort, everything related to our parents, we run through our filter, we generalize, delete it, and distort it into a feeling, right? So I think about my dad, I feel good. I have a good relationship with my dad. I think about an ex-girlfriend and I feel negative, right? I feel depressed. I feel upset. So I've generalized and deleted and distorted that whole relationship into a single feeling. When I think about real estate, I get a certain feeling. When I think about doing yoga, I get another feeling. We generalize, delete, and distort it into one anchor, and that anchor summarizes our whole emotion around that one thing. So most of us are at the mercy of these because they're going on. We've linked up everything in our lives. We pattern match things, and those patterns trigger anchors, and they make us feel a certain way. If you've ever gotten into your vehicle or, anytime you're listening to music and that song comes on that you had linked to your breakup with your girlfriend in high school, the emotions are so strong, like you're there right now, right? Like it fires because you had such an emotional state when you thought about that girlfriend, like when it happened, right? You're in the car, you're crying, the sad song comes on, and your brain goes, this state is linked to this song, right? And for efficiency purposes, it just links the two up. And then maybe like that state and that song, and like for some weird reason, like you didn't like feeling like that, but you also listened to it over and over again because it reminded you of her and it made you, and it strengthened, right? Extreme emotional events and repetition, and you strengthen that relationship between that state and that song. So now anytime you're, at a party or somewhere and that song comes on, boom, instantly you're in that state. And if it's not your conscious focus, you can be focused on something else. The subconscious can hear that song, right? There's so much going on that we filter everything out. So I might be thinking about the person I'm talking to and their face and how they're reacting and what they're saying. But if that song's in the background, my emotional state will change instantly. Okay. I hope this makes sense. So this goes on again every day in our lives. We go to a certain place, we have a feeling about it. We meet with certain people, we have a feeling about it. Certain songs, certain smells, certain foods we have emotions around, right? Like smoking cigarettes is that habit is just an anchor. So think about, we finish eating and our brain says, okay, we usually have a cigarette. So it says here, cigarette. We've done that enough that it links up. So we finish our meal and the brain goes, oh, you just want a cigarette. You want a cigarette. It's been linked up so many times that habit is only an anchor, right? And we get the emotions that drop in our system that remind us, that pull us, that give us the urge to smoke a cigarette. And because we cannot perform inconsistently with our emotions, right? Our capabilities are always linked to our emotions. So we're going to go smoke a cigarette because our association is so strong that after a meal, we go smoke a cigarette. All right, so I hope you guys are seeing how this pattern starts to play out in our lives. Now, the way anchors get established is as the emotion ramps up, the closer it is to the peak, the stronger the anchor. All right, so when I'm all right, so let's think about a song. So as the volume, like if I want to anchor a state to a song, I'm going to use my body in a way to access that emotion, right? If I want confidence, I'll stand tall, I'll breathe confidently, I'll take up space, right? I'm going to hack all of those systems from body language to feel confidence. And I'm going to think of a song that makes me feel confident. And as I get more and more confident, I'm going to turn that song stronger and stronger, higher and higher, more and more confident. And then boom, I shut it off and I let it go. And I do that again. And that's what we condition those anchors into our system to access the right emotions. So we're going to get more into that. All right. So that's what anchors are. You guys should know now why we have them. It's really just an efficiency mechanism. It reminds us. it reminds us of how to feel, how to act in a certain situation. Because if we had to consciously remember every time we walked into a field to look out for saber-toothed tigers, we would never be able to remember all the things going on. So our subconscious, which is infinitely smarter than our conscious mind, just reminds us of all these things. It doesn't even usually tell us what they are. It just gives us an urge. And so the first key is to become self-aware of when your emotions change, what has triggered it, and look for those patterns. Well, weird. When I go to this place, I start to feel this way every time. When I think about my business, I start to feel this way every time. When I look at my bank account, I start to feel this way every time. And so the key is then to consciously override that. So when you look at your bank account and you feel scarcity, right, what you want to do is condition yourself to feel gratitude, right? Because every time, if you think about your business or your boss and you feel scarcity or you feel fear, you're going to stay stuck in that state because you're always in the emotions of that. So what you want it to be, the emotions of what you want has to be stronger than the emotions of what you are. And the only way to do that is to create new anchors. Otherwise, it's going to be conscious. It's going to be willpower. It's going to be so difficult because you're fighting that subconscious supercomputer. So we want to get that supercomputer on board with emotional anchoring. All right. So again, step one is self-awareness. And step two is to be aware of all of the antenna theory. These are really anchors, all of the antenna theory factors that affect our state. And we're going to work with them and working with our built-in wiring. So I watched, little highlights of the UFC fights this weekend. And, some of these guys do this, some of them don't, but they should be anchoring certain emotions to walking out to the cage because their capabilities are based on their emotional state. I watched the Conor McGregor and Donald Cerrone fight, and I could see on their face, I could see in their movements, I could see in their breath, the way they carry themselves, which fighter was going to win. It was very clear to me. So Cerrone, who's a great fighter, but in his head, he had lost that fight. His movements were small and constricted. They were tight. They weren't relaxed. He had tension in his face. His body was a little bit forward, whereas Conor McGregor is a master at this. He goes big, right? So we have an anchor in our system already that the bigger we are, the more confident or aggressive we feel. And when we go smaller in our body, we feel maybe fearful, maybe anxious, maybe depressed, maybe we're protecting ourselves. And so we're going to use those built-in anchors. Anytime you want to feel confident, shoulders back, head up, boom. So if you feel fearful, you can start to override that with an anchor that's set up for confidence. And a smile is really only an anchor for happiness. So when we get into a fearful state, our face goes tight, right? And we frown or we cringe or something happens. But if you override that with an anchor of a smile and you match that with your body language, big body, right? And you move your body passionately and excitedly and you breathe deep and relaxed, all of those are anchors that can override that previous fear anchor. Does this make sense? So we want to use the built-in what we've evolved to feel. So when I access, and we're going to talk about the states, the powerful, what are called ego states, or think about them as radio stations. So I have one that is let's just get into this. So I have one that's my warrior state. Now, every time I've had some plant medicine ceremonies that have anchored this into me, I've intentionally anchored this, but this warrior state has certain characters or qualities, and I've named it. So the name is an anchor, and the name of it is Brave Red Hawk. And I use war drums. So Native American war drums, they don't even have to be Native American. Every culture across the world has drums as an anchor for powerful warrior states. So anytime I want to access a powerful warrior state, I'm going to use my ingrained anchor that humans have evolved with drums, right? So if you put drums on and you crank the volume up slowly, you will feel this reverberation of confidence, of unstoppability, right? In your body, just listening to those drums, your shoulders will go back, your head will go up, and you'll feel powerful. This is why, like when the British went all over the world, they colonized, the first thing they would do is take the drums from the natives, because the drums put people into a powerful state where they were fearless and they would go into battle. So anytime I want to access that state, I put the war drums on. I have a specific song. And I also, I change my body. So a warrior, the chin is going to be down to protect the neck, but the body's going to be big. So if my head is up, this might seem relaxed, confident. But if my head goes down, I'm protecting my vitals. I'm protecting my neck. My eyes go a little bit smaller because my brow is protecting them. And so that built-in wiring is an anchor to help me access that state. Now, if I was a fighter still, I would use that. And I did use that, maybe unintentionally, to access more powerful states. So I would also flare my nostrils. I would breathe in a little bit different way. My breath would change. That's an anchor to an emotional state. And what I'm doing is I'm using all of these congruently. So if I'm going to use my focus, my body language, my breath, my posture, my facial expressions, the music, the pictures in my head, I'm going to use all of those anchors that I've set up to access a warrior state. All right. So if my body was small and shrunken and I'm listening to war drums, those two things are incongruent with the state that I want to be in. So the anchor of a shrunken body and the anchor of war drums are going two different directions. One of them is confidence and power. One of them is depression and fear. So I want to use those consistently to access a warrior state. So my shoulders are going to go back. My head's going to go, my chin's going to go down. I'm going to get a serious look on my face. I'm going to flare my nostrils to breathe in oxygen. That's going to give me more power to access a state of a warrior. Now, again, with the songs. And most importantly, here's what we're going to get into today is essential oils. So any smell goes straight into the limbic system, right? So think about if you smelled like chicken that's been left in the fridge for a month, it smells terrible, right? You're anchored to that to get sick when you smell that. That's just an anchor. And that's to keep you alive. That's to prevent you from eating food that's going to poison you. That's why the smell, our sense of smell is our strongest sense tied to memory. So when we see something, our eyes filter it out, right? Like you and I may see the same color, but it looks totally different to us because our eyes filter it before it touches our brain. But with smells, it goes straight up our nostrils into our limbic system and we don't filter it. And that's, again, why it's so powerfully tied to memory. So what we're going to do is we're going to access a powerful state and anchor it with a smell. We're going to use songs that already make us feel that way. We're going to use the right body language that's consistent with that state. Like, oh man, I just opened this bottle of, this is Arborvitae. This is my warrior state. Like the emotions that are flowing through me. Oh, I got to close that. Oh, the emotions that flow through me right now are overwhelming. Like, I feel powerful in every cell in my body because I've conditioned this incredibly often. This is so strong in me that just the thought of it makes me, I'm like high right now on emotional power. Like it's so amazing. And every time I go to an event, like a Tony Robbins does an amazing job of getting people into peak states, right? What he calls peak states where you're feeling powerful, confident. So every time I access that peak right at the highest moments, I smell this. I smell this. I smell this. And in doing so, now I come home. Remember, our brain links up anything that happens in a heightened emotional state. This is the gold right here, guys. So I get into that powerful state. My brain's already linking up. This state is related to this song. This state's related to this environment. It's related to the people I'm around. And now it's related to this smell. So I can come home and get in the same body language, put the same song on, smell the same smell, and my body is flooded with these emotions, all right? So if I was going to compete, no matter who I was going to compete against or how nervous I was, if I did all of those things, I put the song, the smell, the body language, the movement, right? Like powerful movements from the warrior state, my body would be flooded with emotions of confidence and fearlessness. Like I would feel amazing. You can put me against anybody. I might not win, but I'm going to go out there and I will have access to all of my capabilities. Right? If I'm in a lower state, in a fearful state, or anxious, nervous, and I go out into the cage, as a fighter, any kind of athlete, right? And I go out into that, like I'm not going to be able to access all of my training. As a wrestling coach, I would see this in kids. This is really before I developed these anchors and knew how all this stuff worked together. I'd see these kids go out and their movements would be tight, their head would be down, their body would be shallow, like their breathing would be shallow. They'd be fearful going out to compete. And I'd watch them compete. Like before they even went out, I'd be like, they're not in a state to win. They'd go out to compete and they couldn't hit moves that they hit all the time in practice because they had anchored that nervousness to go out to competition. I didn't have these tools yet to teach them how to access the most powerful states so that they could go compete at their highest level. Now, I did some of this with lots of visualizations and I think it helped a lot, but I didn't quite have it refined to this level where we were conditioning the emotions like we were conditioning the body. And this is the key. So, all right, so that's the warrior state. I'm going to go over a couple of these. And I anchor that to Arbor Vita essential oil. The smell is like this pungent, woody, strong, like it's consistent with that feeling. Like for me, it works. So you guys can use whatever smells, whatever oils you want. I use doTERRA. They've got amazing products. You can get access to these at sponetrain.com/smell this. There's a little training video on how to use essential oils for anchoring, and you can get access to these. So the next one is what I call my charisma state. So I need to do a podcast on charisma, but charisma is energy, certainty, and rapport. When you have those three things, you have charisma. But again, charisma is just a feeling. It's an emotion. And everything that stems from that emotion will be charismatic once you've mastered that. It's an energetic channel and energetic wavelength. Just like when you get into your car, again, I keep coming back to this because it's so important. The favorite station buttons are your anchors. So like, boom, number 1 is country, number 2 is rock and roll, number 3 is classical, number 4 is charisma. So it's like I push this button, boom, my whole system accesses this state of charisma. So that's with peppermint. I'm going to smell this. I smell this before every time I speak, every time I do a podcast. I smell this because it anchors me to that state. And this is like a much more playful, outgoing, energetic state. It's a very different feeling in my system. Every cell in my body feels different when I'm in this state of charisma versus my warrior state. Now, they're both amazing, and sometimes I stack them in different ways. But the peppermint is like an energizing smell. And so again, like when I go to events and I'm feeling really charismatic, I'm relating to people well, I smell this and I change my body language too. So I want to be more playful. So I do like the sly smile. If you guys have seen me do the sly smile, where it's just kind of this like half cocked smile, like a little sideways smile that's flirtatious. It's playful. That makes me feel more charismatic. It makes me feel more confident. Again, big body language. Instead of my chin being down this time to protect my neck, my chin's going to be up. And that just tells my entire system I'm confident. My pace of movement is faster. When I'm in warrior state, it's more rigid. It's more powerful, right? When I'm in the charismatic state, it's more flowing. It's quicker, like more relaxed movements. And they create different emotions. The song for my charisma state, I have a couple different ones, but the strongest one that I'm anchored to is Animals by Martin Garrix. And so it's just like this techno, high vibe song. Tony Robbins uses it a lot at the events. And that's kind of what I was already pre-anchored in me to feel that charismatic state. So I'd get there at the events, boom, smell my oil, release it, get back into that state, smell my oil, release it, get back into the state, and it got conditioned. And so I use that anchor to access the state. Now, does this work? Is it powerful? Very. I actually, a couple years ago, the last job I had, I was giving a presentation to 2 plant managers, the VP of operations, like some very important people. And I like totally bombed it. I got nervous. I got anxious. Like I was stuttering because I didn't remember I talked about public speaking, like this is what everybody fears. And that fear became a reality because I hadn't conditioned my emotions. Now, last week I was on TV for the 3rd time in 2 months. And I didn't have the prep time I wanted. Like I didn't feel like I was in the state I wanted, but I had my oils. And so I smelled it going out and boom, like I felt like I did a pretty good job. Like I did a good job. I was on TV. I was flowing, I was having fun because I've anchored that state. Every time I speak, I smell this ahead of time and I'm there. Like I'm more in flow. I'm more relaxed. So those are my first 2 states. I have 5 that I'm working on right now and I'll keep adding as I go. What's the next one? I didn't bring it with me. Gratitude. So you guys are going to all do my 7-day gratitude challenge, which is coming up. Gratitude's the same way. I just use lavender. So there are certain things that create gratitude in us. Now it's a totally different body. It's totally different breath, right? In warrior state, I might have closed fists because closed fists are aggressive, dominance, fighting, throwing punches, right? And our system is anchored to that. But gratitude is like open palms. It's prayer hands. It's relaxed. It's easy breathing. It's a focus on all the gifts that we have here in the present moment. And when you do that and you can access that state of gratitude, why not anchor it? So I go into my meditation. I'm breathing in my heart. I'm doing some of the heart math, coherent stuff. And like just talking about gratitude, I'm starting to feel it. And then boom, I smell lavender. boom, I smell that. And then like this overwhelming feeling comes over me. Like I might think of someone that I'm grateful for. Like I was always close to my grandma. And so I might think of like how grateful I am for the time that I got to spend with her when she was alive. So I might see like a special time for me. I feel gratitude in my heart. Smell that oil. Smell that oil. Now every time I sit down to meditate, lavender, boom, I'm just grateful. Like this is the key, because most of us like are in depression, anxiety, fear all the time because we have all these anchors around us that we don't even know exist. And so to be intentional, to train ourselves to access these states is one of the most powerful things we can do. So in the 7-day gratitude challenge, it's called Hacking Gratitude. You guys are going to sign up. It's $7 for 7 days. It's stupid cheap. It's at sponetrained.com/gratitude. sponetrained.com/gratitude. We're going to do a bunch of meditations, a bunch of conditioning. I'm going to teach you how to breathe to access gratitude, right? These are all just anchors. I'm going to take you back to a time in your life when you felt gratitude. That's an anchor for you. I'm going to take you back. I'm going to give you a song, or you're going to find your own song that makes you feel grateful. And then we're just going to condition it. So you can just smell an oil or hear the song and boom, you're in gratitude. Like, what if it was that easy to train our emotions? And the stronger it is, right? Like the more you condition it, the stronger the emotions, the more powerful that's going to be going forward. So I believe as hypnotists, all that we're doing is we're changing the anchors that put people into a state. So people that smoke, they have an anchor that their subconscious makes them feel a certain way about cigarettes. It makes them want to smoke. Well, if we can just change the anchor around a cigarette to a negative anchor, or change it, from that urge to smoke to chewing gum, right? Whatever it is, like all we're doing is we're changing the anchor, which changes the feeling, which then changes the action. Everything else is just willpower. And willpower works until about 9:30 in the morning, and then you're pretty much plumb out of it. So that's what I think. And even our alarm clock in the morning, we have an anchor to. So I hear it, like, to be honest, I snooze. That's my, like, it kind of gets me going, but I snooze. Some people, when they hear the alarm clock, they jump out of bed. It's just a different anchor. And now that I'm talking about it, I should probably work on that, or maybe not admit that in public, but that's okay. So those are a couple of my states. So I have one state I've been working on. It's called my king state. So by king, I don't mean like I'm royalty. I think I'm amazing. But if you think about like a king, a leader, there's certain attributes. Like, so if you guys ever study the archetypes, this is exactly what the archetypes are. There's a warrior archetype. There's a king, a jester. There's a lover. All of these archetypes are basically different energetic channels. They're different wavelengths. They're different preset stations on our radio. And we all have ingrained in us an ability to access them, right? Carl Jung talks about the collective consciousness and how all of these archetypes are within us. We can access a warrior state, a king state, a lover state, a humble servant state, like all of these amazing different, a gratitude state. We can access all of these. So the one I'm working on now is the king state. Now, if you think about a king, they add structure, they add fairness, they do what they say they're going to do. This is a good king. They're a humble servant leader. It's not about them, right? It's about providing an environment for the best of the people in their lives. And there's this like confidence, but not arrogance. There's this desire to serve, to be selfless, to hold up the rule of law, to be fair, to rule with courage, right? To not stand down to any enemies, to inspire the people to live their best lives. And now that, like, if you guys think about that feeling, like maybe like I picture Marcus Aurelius in Gladiator. So when I picture that, there's like this energy to him. He's not seeking to be a leader, but he is a leader. He's a servant leader. There's an emotion around that. He's quiet. He's confident. He does the right things. He does what he says he's going to do. He's fair to his people. If you guys ever watch Gladiator. And so I think of that as like, that's the king state. That's what a king is like. And so when I meditate on Marcus Aurelius, or Maximus, the general in Gladiator, the gladiator, when I think about that, I feel the emotions of that. Then I'm going to change my body to stand like him. This is what modeling is, right? I'm going to access the same emotions. I'm going to stand like him. I'm going to think like him. And for me, I use frankincense oil. And that's how I anchor this state. And I use, there's a song that's got bagpipes and drums. And like The bagpipes and drums are this amazing, I don't know, I've listened to it. Like, I haven't listened to it in a long time, or, I didn't until I started anchoring this, but I would hear these bagpipes and drums and just imagine being like this leader, whether it's your business or your family, being that humble servant leader. And like, you get the feelings of that like confidence that you're part of a mission that's bigger than you. And so your body stands a certain way, you breathe a certain way, you smell the oil, you hear the song, and it's like this overwhelmingly powerful state within me. And so I use all of these for different purposes, right? We can access quote unquote peak state, but I don't want to bring my warrior state, which is a peak state for me, home to my family or my friends, right? Like, that's when I'm at the gym. That's when I'm competing. I don't want to bring my grateful state out into the cage when I was a fighter, right? Like, all of these have a different place and time. So we want to condition these emotions within us. All right. I've been going for quite a while now. Let me check my notes and see if there's anything I want to talk about. And again, the first step is like being aware of what states you access now and what anchors you have, what triggers you. So like, we call this generation the snowflake generation because everything triggers them. Everything is an anchor for them to feel offended. And so like, that's not empowering at all. I think most of them use that to be a victim. Like, they like that victim mentality, but instead we can change that. Like, you don't have to feel like a victim. Like, nobody makes me feel like a victim. I know that I'm in control. If somebody like screws me over, like, I'm not a victim. Like, in some way, maybe I created that, or I didn't prevent that, or I'm going to go get what's mine. Like, I don't feel like a victim because I don't have those anchors in me. Or if I do, I override them. I condition, like, I go into warrior state when I need to like stand strong and stand firm. But most people are like snowflakes, and they just get a feeling that they're offended, right? Like, that anchors them into this feeling of being offended, and it's disempowering. So you're going to be aware of that, and you're going to override that. So that awareness is key. The next is planning. Like, these ego states, I planned this. I decided, like, what states do I want to access? When I'm speaking, who do I need to be? When I'm with my friends, who do I need to be? When I'm on a date, who do I need to be? Right? And like, when I'm meditating, what channel, what vibration, what feelings do I want to have in each of those states? And what do I want to anchor them to? Like, what body positioning is congruent with that state already? What songs do I have that are anchored to that state? And now how can I strengthen it? Right? So in meditation and visualization, we can visualize ourselves public speaking with success. We can feel it. Boom, smell the oil. Boom, play that song. Right? And so we condition it in. Now when you go speak, like, there's no nerves because you've conditioned yourself to feel good. When you go to compete as an athlete, you've conditioned yourself to feel good. And it's like, to be honest, it's not always easy to do this ourselves. That's why it's so important to have a coach. And to be completely honest with you, like, this is, I'm planning to do an event. I haven't scheduled the date yet, but this is the whole event. Like, it's around what body positions do we need to be in? Like, this is where body language comes in. How do we need to breathe, move? What do we need to focus on? And then like, we get into those heightened emotional states as a group and anchor it. So you come to my event, you're going to be like, we're going to do a gratitude meditation, make it so strong, and boom, anchor it. Then we're going to go into warrior state. We're going to play music congruent with it. We're going to anchor. We're going to move like a warrior. And we're going to get into that emotional state, boom, anchor it. We're going to go back to gratitude. Right? We're going to go into charisma. We're going to go into all of these different states over and over again, because Hebb's law, neurons that fire together, wired together. And the more you do that, I talk about this on my episode with Paul Ramsey. I don't know if that's going to be before or after this. It builds myelin between our neurons, and it's like a super highway. So like, you get more electrical charge. So the stronger the emotion, the more you do it, the more that electrical charge, the more you're going to be able to access that emotion and take on a life of its own. Yeah, so that's it. Like, and I'm so excited. Like, I don't feel like anybody's doing it this way. So I don't have a place to sign up yet, but stay with the podcast. If you guys are, I would say, plan on coming to my event. I can't wait to see you at my event, because all of these states we're going to learn how to access. I'm going to teach you how to access depression and anxiety. Like, those are just anchors you've set up by the way you move your body, by the thoughts that you think, what you focus on, what you listen to. So we're going to go into those states. Like, it's good to be able to go to a station like that. And then we're going to go into like gratitude. And I'm going to show you how fast you can move between the two, especially when you anchor it. like, so it's so powerful for me because I can be like in this low state. I can step on a treadmill, play my Native American drums, which are so powerfully anchored. That's probably my strongest anchor. Smell this arborvitae oil, and bam, I'm out of, like, I'm like unstoppable. And I feel that, right? And it's a process though. You want to condition it. You got to train yourself to access it, be disciplined enough. And then it fades. So then I get back into it. So I'm always breaking my day up, accessing the right state for the right condition. And it's so fun. Like I'm so excited about this concept. I think it's going to change the world. Again, if you guys should be using essential oils on guard. So here's one I use. It was just because it happened to be there. I take a cold shower every morning, and then after my cold shower, I feel amazing. Like I'm so alive. I'm so energized. And so I just decided to anchor it. And the oil that was right by my shower was this doTERRA On Guard. So, oh man. So when I smell it now, like I get that feeling like I just got out of a cold shower. Like my whole body just is invigorated because my brain has linked this up. It's useful to have. It's like, I don't know why everybody isn't doing this. This is the key to being emotionally prepared for an event. This is the key to accessing your capabilities. We condition our bodies to compete, but we don't condition our minds, right? We don't condition our mind to go into a boardroom full of confidence from a state of like, maybe you have an executive state that you condition. And every time you step into the boardroom, you're powerful, you're decisive, you move your body in a certain way. It's like an alter ego for you that feels confidence, right? Like all it is conditioning. Again, so that's what my event's going to be about. It's going to be 3 or 4 days. I haven't decided yet, of conditioning different states. Life is emotion. Like the quality of your life is the quality of your emotions. Stop leaving it to chance. You have to condition the right emotions into you for everything that you want in life. If you think about money and you get worried, anxious, scared, fearful, all you need to do is set up a new anchor that makes you feel like excited. There's opportunities. You got to talk to yourself in a certain way. So all of that comes together in being in a congruent emotional state, being on a station that you want to resonate with. And yeah, life changes from there. So if you want to get access to these oils, they're super high quality. Like they're amazing. They're the best thing that I use to anchor emotional states. Go to sponetrained.com/smell this. I have a short video on how to set up. You guys can get a doTERRA wholesale membership, which is totally worth it, even if you're just going to buy a few oils. And even if you don't want to do that, like you have your own oils, you're with another company, whatever, like, and just start, create a little chart, a little map of what states you want to be in, what songs are related to it, what body language, and what smell you're gonna anchor to that. So every time you get there, boom, smell it. Every time you get there, hear that song. And your brain will start to link that up, and you'll be able to access that at any time that you want. The stronger the emotion, the more you do it, the more it's going to change, the more you're going to access it, the better your life is going to be. Okay, and again, last thing, sponetrain.com/gratitude. It's a 7-day gratitude challenge. I'm going to teach you the ins and outs of accessing the emotional state of gratitude, which, as you already know, is so important to attracting, to manifesting, to accessing the creative part of you. Like gratitude overrides fear, anxiety. You can't vibrate on the same station as fear and gratitude at the same time, right? It's like being tuned into two stations at once. It just doesn't work. Like the antenna only resonates consistently, congruently with one of those stations. So when we access gratitude, like the way we see the world, remember our perceptual filters, our actions are all consistent with that state. So we're going to put you into gratitude. You're going to see the world differently. You're going to see your opportunities differently. You're going to feel different about yourself. You're going to treat people differently. That's part of the power. And we're going to learn how to amplify that. I have a few, I don't know if they're proprietary, but they're things that I've learned across different modalities, whether it's hypnosis or Buddhism or Christianity. There's some different principles of gratitude that can really amplify that feeling within us. And then the stronger that feeling, the stronger the anchor is we're going to set. So we're going to use that lavender oil. Once you sign up, you'll get a link to get the lavender. You're going to smell that lavender and boom, like just feel gratitude. And the way you treat people is going to be so different. Your life in a state of gratitude is fundamentally different. And it's not just knowing like, oh, I'm grateful, I'm thankful. It's not just saying it. It's feeling like every cell in your body is filled with that emotion. And again, anchors are the best way to get there and the best way to get there consistently. So I hope this was useful. Not a lot of people teach this. So like you guys can use anchors. Like once you start seeing the world from this perspective, you'll see it everywhere. So if you notice, like even in my gratitude, I had my designer do a little box design for the course, and I have a white dove in the background. Now we all have anchored to feel a certain way when we see a white dove, right? It means like purity, gratitude, peace, grace, enlightenment, whatever it means to you, but it's something like spiritual, like it's a symbol, right? And so there's a white dove in the background on the box because I want you to feel a certain way about my product, right? And so like I use that anchor. So you can use anchors anytime you want. This is why presidents always have an American flag behind them or an American flag pin, because as kids, we put our hand on our heart and we say the Pledge of Allegiance, and we feel like we're doing an incantation to our government, which is a whole other topic, but we're doing an incantation with our hand on our heart, which is a powerful emotional place. And so every time we see the president or a presidential candidate with an American flag behind them, we're anchored to feel a certain way. So we start to link that up. I saw Bernie Sanders ad the other day with President Obama in the picture, right? Because he thinks that people feel positive feelings about President Obama, so they're going to associate that. Remember, the brain links up everything that happens. So they're going to associate Bernie Sanders, President Obama. They're going to feel a certain way. Now, again, for Republicans, it might be a totally different association, but that's not who he's going after. So you can use those anchors in everything, in your sales materials, in your speeches, in your talks. Like in my body language course, man, I'm just ranting on this episode. In my body language course, I talk about spatial anchoring. And so in spatial anchoring, when I want people to think about a negative emotion, I always go to my left. I stand left stage, I point left. Think about a time you really struggled, and I point left. And I'll do that a couple times, and it creates an anchor. And then I'll go to the right, and I'll think about someone you're really grateful for. Think about a time, something that you're really passionate about, excited about. And I'll go to the right. I'll stand right. I'll point right. And then at the end, when I want people to make a decision, let's say I want them to buy my product, I'm going to go stand stage right where they have that positive emotion, right? So I'm going to set up an anchor, and then I'm going to use it because I say, are you ready to buy my course? Or, I'll use an embedded command. By now, you're probably ready to make a decision. And I'll stand right. They'll feel good about it. Where if I stood left, they'd feel those negative emotions, and they would have more resistance to the decision. So those anchors are literally everywhere. Start to see the world from this perspective. Notice those anchors in yourself. Start to come up with a game plan of emotions you want to experience, and then start accessing them and conditioning them in you. It's just like going to the gym. You got to build that muscle and use all the factors of the antenna theory. This is why I talk about the antenna theory all the time. Use all of the factors that affect your emotional state at the time. So I'm going to go through that one more time. It's our breath, our facial expressions, the way we move our body, and our posture. That's everything tied to body language. Then there's the people that we spend our time with. We have anchors with the people, or even just being around them, the vibration that we get off of them changes our emotional state. And our lifestyle choices, right? Our diet, our hydration, how much sleep we get, those all affect the anchors that we access. What else? What we focus on, right? What we focus on, we feel. So by changing your focus, you're going to change your feeling. You can change the anchors that's set up by changing your focus. The words that we say, right? If we want to feel confident, we can't talk to ourselves in a negative way because we have an anchor to that negative self-talk. Or, like when I hang out with my parents, I feel like I'm 16 again. I don't know if any of you have that. It's like a high school ego state, like a high school channel that I access when I'm around my parents. It's an anchor. So, and then the last thing, like the pictures we make and the way we talk to ourselves. So get all of those things consistent, take control of them, condition it in, and you won't have to think about it. You'll just automatically have all of those in alignment congruently with the station, with the ego state you want to access, or the archetype, whatever you want to call it, with that channel, that vibrational station that you want to be on. And that's kind of the secret to emotional health, I think. And no one's talking about it. No one is talking about it but me. So I can't wait to see you guys at my event in the near future. Until then, I will see you on the gratitude challenge, $7 for 7 days of gratitude, sponetrain.com/gratitude. To get access to the oils or a little more information on that, I have a couple free ebooks at sponetrain.com/smell this. I can't wait to see you guys on the next episode. I think I'm going to do one on economics and politics, and like not get political, but share like the underlying philosophies of society and economics and how my spiritual beliefs transition into economics, and maybe try to ruffle some feathers. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. I definitely have more great content coming out, and I can't wait to see you guys on the next episode. Thanks again.